So what are we doing today? Also, first of all, hello everybody. Hello McLockers. Hello Ranwid. Hello Chomps. I'm not going to start with the main topic of the week this week because I want to do something else first that I keep saying that I want to do or wish that I did, but I should just do it now, even though it's a little late. I will explain once I start doing it. I intend to revisit all of the 3D Mario games. Technically, I've already started because I've played through Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine. So I should have done this before I started those two, and I thought that maybe it was too late to start it now. But you know what? I feel like it's not because I am aware of the changes that I may or may not make to this list afterwards. So basically what I'm doing is I'm ranking the 3D Mario games where I think they belong on a tier list. It's not too late. It's never too late. Exactly. Eddie, you understand. I'm ranking where I think the 3D Mario games belong on a tier list. Then I am playing all of the 3D Mario games. And then I'm going to re-rank where I think the 3D Mario games belong on a tier list. Because, obviously, depending on the game, there's been various different amounts of time since I've played it. And one of them I technically haven't played. A couple of them I've only played through once, so I don't really have much familiarity with them. Yes, I'm pre-ranking them, but I've played a couple already. Yes, exactly. I think that it kind of doesn't matter. I'm doing it now regardless. The reason I don't think it matters that much is because the ones that I'm most familiar with are Super Mario 64 and Sunshine. I know what I thought going into them, and I know what I think now. If I were to try to do both of these lists after the fact, it would get a little bit hazy maybe, but I think it's fine to do it now instead of just not doing it. So I'm going to do it. So we're going to go in order, and I'm going to start with, of course, Super Mario 64. So where is this thing going? This is, again, this is my before playing any of them tier list. Or, sorry, before replaying any of them this year. What do I think about Mario 64? I think that, and again, I'm trying to like word this as if I didn't just play it. You know, just bear with me, okay? We all know I just played it, same with Sunshine, but that's okay. We're just going to pretend. And I think that the reason that I know that it doesn't matter is because, spoilers, at least one of these games I know is definitely not exactly where I thought I would be putting it, which is where I'm going to put it right now. This and or Sunshine. So I know that I am moving one of these. Or both of them. Spoilers. For the future. For future me. Spoilers. So, here's the thing with Super Mario 64. I obviously grew up playing it a lot and loved it a lot. And it was wild for its time and revolutionary. Blah, 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 blah. Everything that you always hear about it, it's all true. But when I think about going back to play it, which I don't think I've played Mario 64 outside of just playing it all the way through, and I don't know. I might have played it like 5 years ago, but if not, I don't think I played all the way through it when I did, honestly. I'm going to say the last time I fully played through it was 15, if not 20 years ago. But leading up to that point, I've played through Super Mario 64 probably like 10 times total. I played it a lot, and I loved it. But I've always felt as though, spoilers again, 3D Mario games have gotten better over time. But not consistently, necessarily. A little bit of ups and downs. At least as far, like, there's differences between calling something better versus saying that I like something more. I'm going to kind of like, it's hard to distinguish between those two things sometimes, but I'll try to. I've enjoyed other 3D Mario games more than it, for sure. And I think that people have, especially with this game, there's certain games that I just feel like have an extreme amount of nostalgia tied to them overall. And this is like one of the highest on the list of being influenced by nostalgia, in my opinion. And I think I need to clarify something else. This tier list, the way that I'm going to do it, I am not ranking them only compared to themselves. I'm putting them where I think they are as an overall video game versus every video game that exists. For instance, whatever my favorite 3D Mario game is, does not mean I'm automatically putting it in S tier. Since I'm not ranking them just against each other, I'm comparing the games just overall as a video game. Like, where would I put them if I was including all types of different games in one of these lists? So whatever my favorite is doesn't necessarily mean that it, like, I'm putting it in S tier. Like, I'm not going to say that there could be no S tiers. There could be no F tiers. Like, we'll see how much of this tier list I actually use, is what I'm saying, basically. So, Super Mario 64, truly overall, I would probably say, before playing all of them again, that I'm going to assume that I will like this on the lower end. And I honestly, I don't know whether or not I'll determine after I start adding other games. I'm going to put it at B for now. I might move it to C. And now we'll get to Super Mario Sunshine, which, as people that listen to anything that I ever say have probably at some point heard me say that it is my favorite 3D Mario game. And again, based on how I've described it in the past and how I felt before playing it here, blah, 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 you know what I mean? Pretending like I didn't just play it, I'm going to put it in A tier. It is my favorite before I revisit these. Will that change? I don't know. We will find out. But like I just said, I'm actually not going to put it in S tier, meaning, spoilers, I'm not putting anything in S tier. I am of the opinion that 3D Mario games are like second tier Nintendo games, which is probably offensive to some people, maybe. I just think that there's multiple other series that I prefer, and I love 3D Mario games, and I think they're fantastic. I just don't think that they reach quite the heights that, like, for instance, the Zelda series does. And if, like I said, I'm using this scale as if I'm comparing them to all video games, I don't think that any 3D Mario game, again, before replaying them, I might change my mind. I don't think that any 3D Mario game is an S tier video game. I think they all go in probably A, B, C, and D. Spoilers for the rest of these. I'm crazy, Max? I'm sure a lot of people would say that. Why are they where you're ranking them, or will I explain later? I feel like I can explain more. I feel like I was explaining. I guess I didn't really get into specifics. You're right. So, again, before replaying them, I don't think, like, obviously, again, it's very easy to say, it's very easy to praise a lot of older games by, like, starting the sentence by saying, for its time, comma, and then praising it to no end. Yeah, that's true. But with Super Mario 64, I think that that's, like, very true. And honestly, perhaps even for something like Sunshine. I don't know if that line of thinking necessarily holds up as you keep going forward in time with some of the newer releases. Mario 64, the camera is just a nuisance, and it's very, like, basic, I guess, would be the reason that it, like, compared to the other games, I don't find it as enjoyable thinking back on it, or like to want to play it now, I guess. Again, this is not based on when I was playing it, or like playing it at its peak or when it came out. I don't really, that has nothing to do with any of this. This is like, how good are they? How good do I think they are now? And I think that Mario 64 just sets a lot of the standards, obviously, right off the bat for what is to come. But I just don't, I think that almost everything that was done in Super Mario 64 has been improved in one of, if not multiple of, the following games. I struggle to think of like anything that has gotten worse, really. So in that way, it's very difficult for me to put it above things, basically. So, but I still think that it's wonderful. I think that the plot, like, it doesn't feel as, I don't know if precise is the right word, because it is fairly precise. This is the part that's getting a little bit difficult because I did just play it and I'm trying to pretend as if I didn't. I wish that I did this beforehand. I will get more into specifics and stuff on the aftermath of all of these, I think, because then I can like more easily talk about exactly like more specific things. For instance, with Mario Sunshine, putting it in A tier, that is the highest I'm going to put something, like I said. And I just think that Flood adds a lot, and I really like the addition of Flood. I know that there's like gimmicks and stuff in the game that can be a put off, and like almost like puzzle-like things that people don't like. But from my memory, I don't recall having too much of an issue with that and actually enjoying the fact that the game is more difficult and adds different layers for you to think about. You're not just platforming, you're involving yourself with other like interactive elements. And one of the reasons that Mario Sunshine always stays super high in my mind when thinking about Mario is just the general atmosphere and like the fact that you're like in a beach area, kind of like on an island. Just the general, like I mean, they all have like, obviously Mario games have great music, but I think something about Mario Sunshine feels unique, and it definitely has to do with the atmosphere, the weird characters that are pretty unique to it, and just the island vibe. It's great. Like, I just love how focused on water and stuff that it is. It's awesome. And that's something that doesn't really come back in other games either. Like, they kind of just revert to normal platforming for everything else. Although obviously there's power-ups and stuff that make things different. I love Mario Sunshine. And part of me revisiting these is to try to, again, check my own nostalgia, because I'm always like asking people why they like something and like how much of it is nostalgia and how much of it is the actual game itself and whether or not that game still truly holds up. So, replaying these, we will find out. So that's that. Now I can truly speak from like at least present ignorance, even though I've played these games. I have not just played them, although I am about to start playing the rest of these games. So, the next one. In my mind, where is Super Mario Galaxy, the game that came out in 2007 on the Wii? What is my experience with it? So, I played it right when it came out, and I remember playing it for like 2 days straight, and I liked it, but I remember coming off of that experience like feeling disappointed, which I feel like, again, is probably crazy to a lot of people. It seems like Mario Galaxy is definitely the game outside of Super Mario 64 that gets pointed to constantly as being like the peak of the series, which I've always kind of struggled with that thought and did not feel like that when I played the game. Mostly because the main thing that I remember about the game, which I'm very curious to see how true this is that the game feels like very easy. And I don't know if like it's not like Mario games are hard, so I don't know why that is like the main thing that's stuck in my mind when I think about this game. Remembering playing it in that such a short period of time, like getting through it quickly and thinking, "Oh, that was pretty easy." But then like the thing is, when I think about playing these other Mario games as well, it's like, yeah, they're not that long or difficult either. So I'm curious to see how much that actually stands versus these other games, like playing them back to back, because I really feel like I've kind of just like decided my opinion on this, and for some reason have stubbornly wanted to like commit to that thought. So I have a feeling there's a chance with playing the Switch version of Galaxy and Galaxy 2 that I'm gonna, if I were to make an assumption, I feel like I might end up moving them up from where I'm about to put them. Because to me, I'm putting it in B tier over Super Mario 64. I just didn't like, it didn't do much of anything for me. Like the gimmick of, well, first of all, the motion controls, I'm not a massive fan of motion controls like in anything. Beach is better than space. That's what I'm saying. It is really, it like, that might have something to do with it, Eddie, honestly. Also, hello, King of Dorksire. It might have something to do with it because I don't like space stuff at all. Like, I don't like sci-fi. And I love island and beach stuff. Like, that's my, like, preferred location. Just generally. Like, I just love that as a backdrop. And, like, and then Super Mario 64 like doesn't really, it kind of does a bunch of different things, and obviously there's different worlds in all of these games to different degrees that like change up your environments and stuff. Insane take. We'll see. I might change my mind. We will see. Like I said, again, I'm going to repeat myself just in case there was people that were not here when I started. Technically, so this is my before replaying everything tier list, and I'm going to make one after I replay all of them. But technically, I just replayed Super Mario 64 and Sunshine, but I am putting them where I would have put them before, and I've already qualified that I am definitely going to move the positioning of at least one, if not both of them, after my current replay. Whether that is up or down, I'm not going to say. No spoilers. And that we'll see how that evolves over time, too, because I haven't played them all again yet. So, but I think this is where I would kind of put them. I don't like the other thing about Super Mario Galaxy is that it like embraces, because you're in space, the fact that it's like floaty, which is one thing I don't like, especially in platformers. Like that's a major turnoff. Like it feels, again, in my mind, I haven't played it in 18 years, maybe 17. If I don't know if I played it again like the next year or something. But in my mind, Mario Galaxy is very floaty, and that could have something to do with how I framed my opinion around it, because I like for them to feel heavier and more grounded. And again, that has to do with precision, but like, you can kind of do both either way and still have precision. But I definitely do not like floatiness. And I struggle to see how Mario Galaxy doesn't embody floatiness. And from being in space, I just don't like that backdrop. So we'll see. But like I said, of all of these games, I'm going to assume Mario Galaxy is the most likely one to move up, if I were to guess. But I could be wrong. I might move it down. Also, my headset keeps dying even though I definitely had it plugged in. How does that even make sense? What's going on? All right, what's after this one? So, also, with Mario Galaxy, I did like how you get to play as Luigi once you're done with it. I definitely liked it more on a second playthrough. Um, I wish you could just play as him in the first place, though. That would be nice. Like, I would like to play him on my replay, but it's not going to happen, I don't think. I'm assuming, unless they let you do that, but probably not. L take space is amazing. Yeah, it's not. I mean, a lot of people like space. It's just not. It's not my thing. Next on the list, Super Mario Galaxy 2010. Super Mario Galaxy 2, sorry. So this one's a little bit of a weird one because it came out in 2010, and in 2010 I was very much so doing nothing but playing Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2, and then Black Ops, and I just completely skipped it. Didn't play it. I was like, yeah, whatever. I'm too busy playing Call of Duty. I'm not going to play that. But then once I had the Wii U, I ended up buying it digitally on the Wii U a few years later. So it was probably, I don't know when that was. It was probably 2014 or 2015. And I did not finish it, actually. And I don't know why. I literally have no idea why. It might have been because I was bouncing back and forth between other games and got like hooked into something else. So this is a weird one for me because I feel like from however much I played it, I don't think that I beat it. I genuinely can't really remember. I don't think that I did though, but I'm not sure exactly how much of it I played. I feel like there was a lot of improvements and it was more difficult than Mario Galaxy. So I don't really know why I fell off of it. And I'm very curious to actually like replay and finish it, because this is another one where I'm like, I'm probably going to move it higher because, or maybe not higher, but like at least feel more firm in my thoughts. Because I love Yoshi. You got to love Yoshi. He's the best. He's a great addition in Sunshine, and it's awesome that they added him in here. I like the like more, I don't know if linear is the right word, but like the almost level-based progression through the game. I don't remember exactly how it works, but I know there is some sort of like world map and you're like traveling along it and stuff. That's cool. It's cool that they ended up doing a sequel because they don't really do that. And I'm excited to actually play through it in its entirety and actually determine whether or not it does kind of have a little bit more of that difficulty that I'm looking for. Before going back to it, the weird thing is here, what my brain is telling me to do right now is to put it here. Because for some reason, I think that I like it more than these, despite having played this game like 10 times. And having beat Mario Galaxy like twice and not beating this game. But I feel like I can't do that. I feel like that would be ridiculous to do that. So I'm not going to do that. But in my mind, I like it more than these two, despite not playing all of it. Don't ask me to explain how that makes sense. But I'm going to put it there. And again, I would not be surprised at all if I end up putting this in A tier afterwards. But we'll see. Maybe not. It could be all a bunch of nonsense. Super Mario 3D Land. This is the only other one that I have not finished. I believe I got this. Did this come out as a launch game for the 3DS? For some reason, my mind is telling me something like that. That actually could be wrong. I know that the 3DS had like a weird launch, and they kind of like relaunched it and lowered the price significantly afterwards. And I don't remember if this was part of the first actual launch or the like soft relaunch that they did. Regardless, I believe it was out in the first place because I remember playing it. I think that must have been like 2011. And it was just weird because like playing on the 3DS and playing a 3D Mario game just felt so off to me. And again, I know a lot of people really like this game, but for some reason, like being in a 3D space, playing on a tiny handheld, never, never really clicked with me with any game. Like I'm, I kind of only really played Pokemon games and like Mario Kart on my DS or 3DS or Game Boy. Going going and playing fully 3D games was never not something I did very much on those tiny handhelds. And this didn't really do much of anything for me. I didn't like it very much. And obviously it's not as expansive as the rest of them. It feels like a step back in a lot of ways. Obviously there's like creative ideas in here, but in terms of your actual like movement ability and the scope of the areas that you're in, it's very limited. This is another one. I mean, that's why I'm doing this, is I'm very curious to replay all of these, because like I have fairly firm opinions on some of them that are in my mind, but then also just completely loose and unexplainable opinions for a lot of these. Like, I don't know how long I played this for. Probably like I would guess like maybe 10 hours or something. I don't think that I beat it. Maybe I did. And I remember just selling it and being like, not really a fan. I don't know that I can put it in D tier. That seems a bit ridiculous. I feel like I'll probably leave it in C tier here. This one I'm not. I was saying Mario Galaxy and Mario Galaxy 2 might go up. This one, I have a feeling it won't. I don't think it's going to move after I replay it, but we'll see. Willing to have my mind changed. Super Mario 3D World. The successor to 3D Land, now on the Wii U, where you get to play as Luigi, which is a huge plus, or Peach or Toad. Kind of bringing back the Super Mario Bros. 2 vibe, or some of the new Super Mario Bros. Games, of course. Kind of like melding the 2D and the 3D. Some people don't really consider it that much of an actual 3D Mario game. Obviously, technically it is. It belongs on a list like this, but it's at a different perspective, and it kind of doesn't fit fully into the mold with the other ones. But I think it's a lot of fun, and I think it gets unfairly trashed. This one's tough. I actually don't know where to put this. Man, this one's really tough, because I basically just had 3 different thoughts at once. It doesn't, like, the thing is, there's not that much movement to be had within the same tier. Like, I'm putting it in B tier. The thing is, I don't know if I want it at the end. I don't know if I want it here, or I don't know if I want it here. I guess it doesn't matter too much. It's not like I'm putting it on a different tier, but I guess honestly I'm gonna put it here, because when I think about if I weren't doing this where I was replaying all of them and like it's I just want to play all of them in order. There has been a couple occasions where I have got the urge to specifically go back and play this, just like I've gotten the urge to go back and play Mario Galaxy 2. I've never really had the individual urge, outside of wanting to do this whole list thing, to go back and play Mario Galaxy or Mario 64. So that tells me, I guess, something in my mind is telling me that I think that I would have more fun playing this, which tells me that I technically had a better time with it, which probably seems weird. And like, it does feel weird. And again, I think that that's something that might change. I'm going to put it here, but I could see it moving down the list. Because, again, you are a little bit more limited because you can't really control the camera very well. You're not, like, it's more of a fixed camera. You're not, you're not in a full 3D space, but that's okay. It's going for something different. The only unfortunate thing is that like it feels like it ate up a spot that would have, like, it is supposed to be the 3D Mario game for that time period on the Wii U, which is already just an awkward time period in the first place. But outside of that, like, if you're not holding that against it, I feel like, I mean, it's obviously a solid game. So I'm going to leave it there. Then we have Super Mario Odyssey. These are so, like, I don't know why. This is more difficult than I thought it was going to be. So something I say very often is that I think that for the most part, video games have been getting better and better over time. And it's not like I said, a straight line up. It's not like every successor is better than what came before it. That's not always true, but just in general, I feel like games have gotten much smoother to play. Obviously nicer to look at. That's not as important. It's mostly like the quality of life enhancements and the refinement of controls and stuff that I find very important, and what has contributed to games continuously getting better. So by that logic, my own logic, you would generally assume that I would think that Odyssey was definitely the best one because it is the newest one. It is refined in a lot of ways. It is super smooth. And in some ways, I kind of like, I can recognize that, but I feel like because I'm not, like I said, a mega fan of 3D Mario games, when I played through this, like this, keep in mind again, this is 2017, Switch came out with Breath of the Wild, and like Breath of the Wild was something very special and like very clearly a new peak in the series. And then by the time we get to Super Mario Odyssey, people generally, I think, also feel that way with it. Although, like I said, Super Mario Galaxy is very high on people's lists all the time. But I feel like because I'm not super, super attached and in love with 3D Mario games in the first place, it just didn't quite stick with me that hard compared to like other games of that year, for instance. So this is where I question like how much nostalgia is involved in a lot of my thoughts with this stuff, and why I'm so curious to see how I end up moving things around, because I'm going to put this here. I think that it is because of the way that it handles and your move set and the amount of different things that you can do, like it's very flexible and again precise, and there's a lot of creativity here. But I didn't feel compelled to like do everything in it. I beat the game and then didn't feel like doing any of the extra stuff because I was kind of just done with it at that point. And I don't necessarily know how I feel about the approach where you're like finding smaller or like completing smaller objectives more frequently. It like takes away from the way that like, for instance, 64 and Sunshine handle it, where like there's one bigger feeling objective. In Mario Odyssey, you're kind of just like constantly getting little things completed, and it doesn't feel like you're accomplishing as much, I guess, which, how much does that matter? I don't know. So maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe it doesn't. But I'm going to put it here. And this one, I feel like will probably stay where it is, regardless of whether or not things move around it. Maybe. But I think I feel pretty confident, because also, obviously, that's the most recent. Because I have not played Bowser's Fury. So it's going and haven't played. I don't know what to expect with that, really. I've like briefly seen gameplay of it. I honestly don't really know how the game works. I love Bowser though, so maybe that'll hold the game up for me. Who knows? I have no idea. We will find out. I would love to. I would love to love it. And I'm very curious to get to it. Now, Super Mario 64 DS is also in this tier list. I mean, I'm not gonna revisit this game. But I will include it in this version, or just for a brief moment. I'll take it off. I remember when this game came out that I loved it. And like, I feel like I would put it maybe here, which is super weird. Like, because of the added things, like being able to play as, again, Luigi. Luigi gets lots of bonus points, but also like Yoshi and Wario. It was just cool to have all the different playable characters. The thing is, I don't remember the game controlling poorly, but like all you ever hear about when people talk about it, it's not going to be. I'm going to take it out. I'm just putting it where it is in my mind from nostalgia feelings. I don't remember it controlling poorly, but like all you ever hear about this game is how horrible it plays because you have to use. I didn't know that you had to use the D-pad to move around in this game. Like obviously because there's just a D-pad on the DS, but like that never registered to me, and I don't remember that ever being a problem, which is crazy because I just feel like if I tried to play that now, I would lose my mind. But when I was younger, it didn't matter, apparently. Oh, I can't put it back. Damn it! Oh no, I can't put it back. Well, that's awkward. Anyways, it doesn't matter. So this is what we're starting with. Minus this. Pretend it's not there. I thought I could put it back under. Whoops. So, replaying all of them, we have Mario Sunshine, then Mario Odyssey in A tier. Nothing in S tier. B tier, Super Mario Galaxy 2, Super Mario 3D World, Super Mario Galaxy, Super Mario 64. C tier, Super Mario 3D Land. Haven't played Bowser's Fury. Now, what will happen once I get through all of them? What will change? I don't know. Let's find out. Up next, I gotta get to Super Mario Galaxy. I'm very much so looking forward to it. So we'll see what happens. That's that. So gaming subscription services, Xbox Game Pass prices is kind of what I named the title of the topic. And this is what I wrote and kind of asked people to prompt the conversation. And again, not required for people that answer this question, any of these questions directly, but it's just kind of an explanation for what we're trying to talk about here. If anybody wants to add to the conversation, feel free to say whatever you want to say as I'm talking. I'm just kind of basically be responding to what has been written here. So, this is what I wrote. This topic felt relevant due to recent increases in price to the Xbox Game Pass and not as recent increase in price to PS Plus. Nintendo Online is part of the discussion as well. I didn't list things like EA Play or Ubisoft Plus. Is that what it's called? I think. Obviously, there's other subscription services, and there's like subscription services within individual games and stuff. I don't know if anybody, again, didn't read any of this. I don't know if anybody responded with any of that. Those are also valid, obviously. But I was mainly talking about the big three overall services. So this is what I asked. How do you feel about them? Which ones are you subscribed to? Do you feel as though they're priced fairly? If you're not subbed to them, what would make you consider it? For reference, here are all the prices in US. All prices based off of what it costs per year using the best deal. As far as I know, Xbox is the only one that does not offer a year's worth at once. Click the spoiler thing. Okay, so I tried looking up. It's a little bit hazy with Xbox because I was unsure about what is or isn't available for purchase for a year. Because I know that you previously could buy things or the Xbox like Live Gold and stuff for an entire year, but then they kind of folded that in and got rid of it. made it all Game Pass, and then there was different tiers of Game Pass, and then it seemed like you couldn't buy years worth anymore, and everything was monthly. I don't know. I couldn't find an answer to that, so I just for that, at the very least I know Ultimate you can't, but I don't know if these other ones if you can. So these are basically just the monthly costs added up in like times 12. So there might be a discrepancy here, I'm not sure. So anyways, these are the different prices for the different services. So for Nintendo Online, if you're just buying it for yourself, individual's $20. If you're doing it for yourself, but you also want the expansion pack, which has the N64 and like the GameCube games and what some of the other Sega stuff, I'm not sure what is or isn't included. It's $50. It's a pretty big gap in price there. Family plan, which you can include up to 8 people on, which is crazy. I'm still amazed that they do this and let people just do it with whoever. $35, and if you want 8 people with the expansion pack, it's $80 for a year. That is the one that I have. I have the family plan and expansion pack, and I have a few people on it with me. I don't even remember who's on there at this point. PlayStation Plus, they have 3 tiers that have various different perks. Essential, Extra, and Premium. 80, 135, and 160. That has recently gone up. I believe the first where that started at was, first of all, there was only one tier, and it was 50. I believe it started at 50 when it first happened, which was like, is that true? Because it didn't include online at first. It might have started lower. I actually don't remember. Because it came out during the PS3 era in like 2009, because they were trying to compete with Xbox with like free games, and it was just free games. Well, free in quotes. And that was like 2009. And then they didn't make it a requirement to play online until the PS4 came out in 2013. And then they didn't add these extra tiers until much later. Not sure exactly what year that was. That was probably... Was that this generation? Maybe? It might have been like 2021 or something. Could be wrong with that. Anyways, so they kind of basically made different tiers because then they were trying to compete seemingly with Game Pass by offering newer games on the service for like not permanently like they were before. And then Premium's giving you access to like older games and stuff, and then that's kind of in competition with Nintendo. So that's a little different. And then this is where a lot of this just whatever has been going on with Xbox. This just happened, which kind of prompted this discussion in my mind, which is that the primary method to like get everything through Game Pass is now $30 a month, which is $360 a year, of course. And it was 20, and before that, like I believe it started at even lower than that. Well, the thing is, I've had Game Pass for 6 years now, and I got it through methods that let me like convert a year's worth of Xbox Live Gold into like a certain amount of time of, I don't remember exactly how it worked. It was like 3-to-1. Basically, you could get a very good deal and earn a lot of months worth of Game Pass. So I got like 3 years ahead of time of Game Pass, and then I got 3 years ahead of time of Game Pass again. And it expires in this December. Actually. I'm losing my voice so badly right now. Wow. I have no idea why. I haven't even been talking that much. It's very weird. It usually doesn't happen to me. Or it'll happen after like hours and hours of talking. My throat's almost hurting. It's not good. Got coronavirus from people at work? I don't think so. I hope not. I feel fine. It's just my throat when I'm talking. Gotta power through it. It's like there's a tickle. And I keep trying to cough it out, but it doesn't want to move. Weird. Do I ever fight people in video games at work? No. Okay. So that's the basic overview, I guess, of what's going on here. And people have been up in arms about the change in price to Gamepass. I have a lot of thoughts on the matter, but let's go through what other people have written in talking about before I get to anything, and I'll probably end up getting to what I think by other people mentioning it, but we'll see. All right. Jack writes in. Oh, I did read the beginning of this. I responded to him because it was funny. I saw the first line and I was like, I need to read that. Or reply to that. I can't stop yapping. You should just ignore or ban me. I should change my name to Yapping Makes Me Feel Good. I swear I'll try to never leave another long response ever again. Wrong. Please leave long responses. I love these. It makes it so much easier to like continue to have things to pull from so that I don't have to use my brain as much when I have other people's thoughts to work off of and remind me what my own thoughts are sometimes. The more people write here, well, maybe to a degree, the more that people write here, the better. But you don't have to, but I'm just mean like, it's nice. It's helpful. A significant reason I've been pushed towards PC away from consoles is paying for online. I've always resented having to pay for mediocre peer-to-peer connection. Platforms are not incurring costs from Bob sending packets to Cheryl. The costs are being incurred by the developer, publisher to program the netcode and by the clients paying their ISP for the network traffic. I'm happy to pay a fee to cover the costs for dedicated servers to the developer or publisher, not the platform holder, doubly so for the massive server infrastructure needed to facilitate an MMORPG. Likewise, I'd pay a nominal fee for sundry online services to the platform, such as party voice chat. But that never happens. There's always a premium spread on top for no reason other than to squeeze the stone. See, I don't know how I feel about this part of the discussion because, and I don't know where I've like formed my opinion from, really. I've never understood, well, not that I don't understand. I have never felt that, any of what he just said. Like, I mean, it can probably be seen as a bad thing, but I've always just assumed that it made sense to be paying for online, and I've never, like, questioned it, I guess. Like, it's never bothered me. That's never been a, I guess I see it the opposite way. I find it very weird that you can play games on Steam without paying for, like, the service overall of, like, the ability to play games online with other people. But yeah, Georgezilla, there's probably truth to that, but the thing is, I mean, this is not the exact same thing, but technically, like, I started playing online on the Wii and then the PS3, so I played online games for 7 years without paying for it. Like, I didn't start paying for online until the PS4. So I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. But also I didn't like, it's not like the second I started playing online, I was paying for it. Not quite. I played online games without paying for it for like 7 years. And I always found it weird that I wasn't, like, that was like a weird perk of being on the PS3, I guess, versus the Xbox 360. Obviously, that was something that was constantly brought up. But attached to that conversation was also like the fact that Xbox Live was better than PlayStation Network. That was a very much so recurring conversation that came up a lot. And that was like, well, you're paying for it because it's a better service. Like, what would these services look like if you weren't paying for that? I don't know. I obviously can't comment on that. I can't like see an alternate timeline. I would assume that I don't know. I'm not just like I don't want to blindly defend it. I just don't. Xbox Live didn't get shut down for 4+ months. Part of that was having money come in to invest security measures. I mean, maybe. That's what I mean. Like, it's hard to tell what is or isn't being affected by there being a revenue source. But the thing is that the counter argument to that is like that hasn't happened to Steam either, right? Or maybe it has, and I'm unaware. But obviously, yeah, PlayStation had a big network hack in like, when was that? 2011. And maybe that did have to do with them then 2 years later being like, give us money. I don't know. Anyways, I don't want to get too hung up on that part of this conversation. I know a lot of people feel that way. I was just saying that I have never really weighed that as a part of the equation, I guess. It's always just been a given. Like, yeah, it makes sense to me that you would pay to play online. But I don't really know how to fully explain that. Welcome on in, Dan. We are in the middle of the topic of the week. Feel free to contribute to anything. You can write your own, if you want to go in here and write it before I get to it, you can, or just chat as we go here. The bird born in the pet store thinks he is free. It's just like, I don't know how to... I don't like trying to make up scenarios in my head about these things as though I know how things would be if they were different, I guess. Like, I don't know. I would love to know exactly what they imply that the money is going towards when you're paying for online in the way that you do. Like, what portion of it are you allocating to this? How much of the cost of it are you implying is this? Like, what is this worth to you? And where is it going to? What is it doing? But like, that's just a whole conversation that you can't have that conversation. Obviously, there's no way to know those answers. So it's kind of pointless. I don't know why I'm getting so hung up on it. The reason the Xbox likely moved towards Game Pass was probably because people were canceling, just paying for matchmaking ain't worth it. I mean, I don't think so. I mean, this. Well, we are on the topic of Game Pass and stuff. I think Game Pass was and is a very good idea. It's just been kind of handled improperly. When you're paying for traditional online, it's just matchmaking. Yeah. I've just always found it easy to like draw that parallel as like you are getting something more out of the game that like is not just the game itself. You are like connecting with other people. Like, that just seems like something that is not just baked into the initial price. But I don't know. Okay, let's move on with this, or else I'm gonna get stuck on this forever. I don't really feel very I'm not like actually passionate about it in either direction. Like, I don't want to just defend it. I just I just saying I don't think about it like as part of the equation. It's always like I've kind of always just had these services for the games, and it's always had nothing to do with anything else, really, I guess. So that's why it's hard to single that out and then focus on it. All right, I'm going to continue with what Jack said. I don't know where he's going with this. I just got hung up on something for way too long there. Okay. With the original Xbox, I think Microsoft was justified charging for online. Online multiplayer for Halo 1 and 2 was very robust. Felt like they used dedicated servers. Connections felt revolutionarily good for the time on console. Unfortunately, Microsoft was both developer and publisher and platform holder. While justified at the time, it has allowed platform holders to get away with charging for something they don't technically provide ever since, including Microsoft. Microsoft even tried to do this with games for Windows Live on PC, but thankfully that awful pilot program crashed and burned. I don't know anything about that. I can't comment on that. I've heard of it. I don't know the details of that. On top of that, everyone else had aped them without offering the same quality. They simply wanted their own customers who would grow accustomed to paying for nothing. What business wouldn't chase that rainbow, but they can't keep the fees the same or lower them as perhaps would occur in a just world. They're fiduciaries to their shareholders. They sure are. They've added value to the subscriptions over time. If they were truly operating in good faith, they would break out each service to its own individually viable branch and keep peer-to-peer connection games free to play online, much like they do now with free-to-play games like Fortnite. I see tacit acknowledgement of these points in that PS Plus is not required on top of the publisher-mandated subscription fee to play an MMO on PlayStation. Yeah, that's always been a weird part of it, is like, that's always been interesting to me. And I've not really known how to wrap my head around that. That like games that are free to play like even further to the point that they don't require the subscription service. I don't know if that works on all the consoles, but I believe, like he was saying, it does on PlayStation. I was assuming it was on everything, but maybe it's not. I don't actually know. The other big annoyance is they bundle services together. Maybe I want to pay for cloud saves, but I can't just do that. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree that, I mean, that's just a problem generally with like everything is always trying to bundle things together to get you to pay like a minimum amount for things, some things you do and some things you don't want. That is frustrating. That's not just a gaming thing. I'm forced to pay for online play and a small collection of rented games in addition. This is like being unable to buy a digital copy of Jurassic Park standalone. You're forced to buy Jingle All the Way, Back to the Future Part 3, Pride and Prejudice, Rear Window, and Jurassic Park, all bundled together, or not at all. Yeah, I agree. Individual purchases are sorely lacking in a lot of areas, for sure. Currently, Nintendo's offering is the best, but only because they didn't have the guts to charge as much as Sony and Microsoft. I don't think their mediocre online architecture is worth paying much for, but I stomach it because the fee is so low on a split family plan. The value for the retro game collections are fine as well, but I don't want to have to pay for it. Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't... Outside of getting caught up on the paying for online thing, which honestly, a lot of this write-in is about. I mean, I agree with a lot of things they're saying. Yeah. We've known about Microsoft's clear plans, not perfectly clear, but fairly clear plans for years now. They've been headed in that direction to be multi-platform and potentially get out of a hardware, even though they keep saying that they're not. A little unclear. That's the unclear part. We'll see. Okay. Man. Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to get too into anything else specific yet. We'll get through some of these other write-ins here. Turbo Creamer says, I am currently subscribed to Switch Online and PlayStation Plus. I'm subscribed to Nintendo just so I can play online and Smash and Mario Kart. Nice. I'm subscribed to PS Plus because I kind of see it as a money saver. I get access to quite a few games that would cost more if I bought them individually. I don't see myself using Gamepass because it doesn't have anything for me and it's just too pricey. I think Nintendo's online sub service price is fine. PlayStation's is okay. And Xbox's is kind of insane, especially after the recent price increase. So this kind of gets into the entire point of like this entire conversation, at least from my perspective, which is that as a value judgment, like, are these things worth the amount of money that they are asking for each of them based on what they offer for each of them? I think the answer across the board is yes. But you have to be in a position to be able to make use of those perks, like time-wise or interest-wise. You have to be somebody who is interested in the things that are going to be or are on these services, and have the time to be able to like actually get through a decent amount of them. And if those two things are checked, then yes, all of these are worth the price that they're asking you for whatever period of time that you are able to interact with them properly. I don't think any of them are overpriced. They're overpriced if you don't have the time to make use of them, or you don't care enough about the things that are in them. But then that's not the fault of these services themselves. Like, that's why there's so many different tiers and stuff, because they know that not everyone wants to or can pay $360 a year for Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, even though if you really break it down, like, there's an insane amount of games that are coming out on a consistent basis, especially this year, for like, they've finally actually got to a good cadence. And like, same thing with PlayStation Plus Extra. There's lots of great games that get put on there on a monthly basis, and on top of the ones that also get put in the essential tier. And then as you go down and down the list to less expensive things, like obviously Nintendo is not offering nearly as much in terms of that because they're not doing newer games and stuff. But that's why the price is a lot lower. And like, it's still worth it. And especially because of the whole 8 people thing. Like, all of them have justifiable cost, in my opinion. It's just, is it justifiable to you? And if the answer is no, then that's totally fine. But I feel like a lot of the arguments against all of these and being up in arms against all these prices is like, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, I don't have the interest. And it's like, okay, well then it's not like, they're not trying to sell it to every single person. Although the problem is that from their perspective, they kind of should be. Like, there's a little bit of a disconnect there, because obviously they want as many people as possible to be buying into these services. And there's like some sort of weird like tug of war. So like, for instance, right now I have the family plan and expansion pack for Nintendo Online, and I have a few people on the family plan with me. I don't remember who exactly is on it, but there's people from the community I've just put on there so that they can have it. I had PlayStation Plus Premium for a while when it came out, and then realized quickly that I didn't care about it, and then downgraded it to Extra, and kept that. I actually, for the very first time earlier this year, let my PlayStation Plus run out for the first time since it was introduced. Like, I got it in 2009, and I had it consistently until this year. I let it run out for a few months, and then I think I got it back when I was going to, for various reasons. I was playing Night Rain, and then also wanted Sword of the Sea, and then Katamari. So there was a bunch of different reasons. So I was like, I'm going to come back in. I stopped using it for a few months, and then I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy it for the next year. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of games that I'm going to get through it. And there was a few games I wanted to play online. It's like, yeah, now it's worth it to me to do that. And then you never know what's going to get added to it. Everything else is just going to be on top of that. So it made sense. Now, again, for me, a little bit of a different situation here because I only play Game Pass on PC. So like this one's not even, the Ultimate one's not even directed at me. So that's nice. But then there's a weird asterisk going on and stuff regarding PC Game Pass and like what is or isn't available. I saw an image saying that Call of Duty's not on it, but I think that was referring to the premium, not PC. I don't actually know. I didn't look into that. Anyways. But my situation with Xbox Game Pass is that I've had Xbox, the highest form of Xbox Game Pass, whatever that has been over the past 6 years. For 6 years now, because I bought it at a lower price with their Xbox Live Gold thing. So basically I was paying, for the last 6 years, I believe I've paid like, I don't know, I don't remember what it went out to, like $8 a month or something. And I've played tons of games through Game Pass doing that. So like, again, value proposition wise there definitely made sense. Now it's running out in December and I'm intending to let it lapse and not get it again. And I already was before they did this increase in price, by the way. This has nothing to do with that. But I still intend to get PC Game Pass when I want to, like there's a couple games on there that I want to play. I fully intend to do it again. Like probably on a month-to-month basis. Well, it has to be, I guess, because you can't buy a year for whatever reason. That is the weird thing with Game Pass, is that there's no yearly subscription. I don't know. That's a whole different conversation. But so anyways, that's my experience with these. I think that they all are worth it as long as they are worth it to you. And I just feel like the complaining that they're not worth it, I feel like that's the wrong angle to take the conversation, because it's just like, I feel like they are factually worth the price based on the games that are offered within them. It's just whether or not you want to play those games and or have the time to play enough of them for it to make sense. And if not, that's totally valid, but that's not the price of the service's fault. And I think that comes down to like just a general devaluing of games from people. But let's continue. Ham writes in, now that all the online multiplayer subscriptions also include some level of game subscription service, I think it's a good value for the current prices. Before that, I didn't like double dipping aspect of it, paying for multiplayer access, then paying for the game subscription separately. Of course, the rising costs are a problem, and with each increase, I'm sure players are reassessing the value they're personally getting out of it, right? There's good value there for the base tier subscriptions because it's essentially a bonus for the multiplayer access you were already paying for. See, Ham's taken a different, kind of the opposite approach of what Jack was saying. And what we were talking about earlier of just like assuming that it makes sense to be paying for online. And kind of what I was saying too. At the same time, I know it's not a value that fits my playstyle. I primarily play on PC when multiplayer is free, and I'm likely to juggle just a few games at a time, or maybe focus on only one for a while. And anytime I get an inkling to revisit something, I don't want to be concerned about paying more to access it. Yeah, so like that's kind of what I was just talking about. They are more worth it to people that have the time to make them worth it. So currently, I still prefer to buy each game instead of subscribing unless I can get my hands on a promo code. That way, I feel like I can play the games on my terms in the time that my life allows for it, not the time that the subscription allows. That makes sense. Subscription allows access to an entire catalog, and I can play games that I otherwise wouldn't have played, but what's the value for me having access to everything when my intention is to focus on just a handful of games at a time? For what it's worth, for the 2 games that I've played to completion through Game Pass, I want to play them again. So now I'm waiting on a sale so that I can have them in my library at all times. Fair enough. That has happened to me a couple times, but I don't mind. Like, I bought Lies of P on PlayStation with the DLC to revisit it because I had originally played it on Game Pass. I also bought a couple games and like did them in giveaways and stuff that I had played on Game Pass, like Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush specifically, I liked it so much and like thought it was so incredible that I was like, I have to buy this game, but like I'm not gonna buy it for myself because I already played it on Game Pass. So I was like, I just did a giveaway with it. So yeah, I see that's kind of the opposite thing, or the opposite, or not the opposite, the opinion that I was referring to that made sense to have, even though it's not how I feel. Because again, it's not discrediting the value of the subscriptions, but saying that the value is irrelevant to you based on the way that you engage with playing games, which that's totally makes sense. That's like a reasonable thing to say. Versus some of the like crazy, like, oh my God, it's so expensive and unbelievably expensive. And just, they're ripping you off at every turn. That whole take, which makes no sense to me. I currently Sushi Drew writes in. I currently subscribe to PlayStation Plus Premium, but only because I managed to secure 5 years worth of it. Ha! Yeah, I basically did that too. Before the massive price increase. Will I renew it once it expires? Probably not, unless Sony significantly improves the value proposition. I do appreciate the ability to stream PS Plus titles to my portal when I'm away and connected to the internet, but in practice, I rarely take advantage of it. The game selection so far simply hasn't justified the cost. Interesting. For premium, I agree. For extra, I don't. But that's going to depend on the person and whether or not you want to buy them. As for Nintendo Switch Online and the expansion pack, I keep it active because it's relatively inexpensive, roughly the cost of 2 lunches in Seattle, for an entire year of service. At that price, it's easy to forget about, and I usually use it enough to make it worthwhile. When it comes to Xbox, Game Pass used to offer an undeniably incredible value. In fact, it arguably devalued the perception of what games should cost. Yeah, that is a problem with it. Offering an extensive library, including day one releases at such low price, was almost too good to be true. Of course, we all knew that this kind of model wasn't sustainable forever. Xbox as a platform is in a difficult position, though Microsoft's performance as a third-party publisher remains strong. Microsoft surely anticipated that the recent drastic price hike would lead to customer attrition, but they seem to have underestimated the extent of the backlash. At this point, simply purchasing the specific games you want and having the option to resell them later on often proves more cost-effective. Most players don't have the time to complete 40-plus hour games within a single month, making the new subscription price hard to justify. PC Game Pass still offers decent value for now, but I suspect that won't last much longer. Yeah. I'm pretty in line with a lot of that. I would say, especially, it's so weird that the whole Xbox Game Pass is the best value in gaming has gotten like memed as if it's not true. Like it's such a weird conversation. Like the games that have been added to it over time, and especially now, like the thing is, like, obviously games leave it, but like so many games stay in there for so long that over time it just continuously gets more and more worth the price, and like it's kind of crazy. But again, it totally depends on whether or not, if you, like you said, if if you don't have time to play even a single game in its entirety in a month, let alone like play 2 or 3, then the less time you have, the more offensive the price is going to seem, because it's like, why would I pay $30 a month for 2 months to get through this one big game? I might as well just buy the game for $60, $70. Like, obviously, when you look at it like that, if you're coming from that perspective, that would be really stupid to try to argue with that person that they should use Game Pass. And I feel like that's where a lot of confusion with this topic comes in, because like everyone's arguing in like absolutes, where it's like, this factually is the best deal and everyone should use it because it's the best, or like, this is extremely overpriced and nobody should use it and it's a total ripoff. How could anybody actually make use of this? But it's like, neither of those are true. They're like partially true in some cases for some people, depending on your situation. But like most of the time, it's somewhere in between. A feeling of being rushed to play a game to justify the price is not comfortable way to play a game. That, sure, that could also be true. Yeah, if you're only like if you're only subscribed for a certain amount of time, or your intention is to only be subscribed for a month or 2, and then you feel as though you need to rush through a game because you don't necessarily have the time to be that you maybe thought that you did, or just ran into issues and other things to do in life, and then you're like, well, that was a waste of money because now I have to subscribe for another month, or just like, yeah, rush through the end of a game to actually make use of like complete it or whatever in a certain amount of time. I've never run into that, but I've also never temporarily bought any of these services. Although, like I said, I am going to probably start doing that because my Game Pass is going to run out and I'm not going to rebuy it immediately. Unless there's stuff in December that I want to play on it. Maybe, I don't know. Because like Absalom, it's coming out in a few days. That's going to be on Game Pass, I guess. I believe. So that's cool. I don't know what else is coming in the next couple months. I guess Outer Worlds 2, but I don't really know that I'm probably not going to play. Yeah. We have an answer from Simply. To participate, my answer will be short and sweet. I don't play PlayStation or Xbox. I only play Nintendo. For the price I paid for the 1-year subscription, I find it's totally worth it for the amount of time we spend on it. Cav plays a lot of the older games, and I just play Kart Online. But for the amount of time I spend online, I'm very happy with the price. But if we talk about TV subscriptions, then I could go on for hours, but to my understanding, it's only game-related. I was giving you a nice, pleasant voice. What? I don't have an issue with how much Nintendo asks, considering how little it is. The only thing I would say about Nintendo is that it's very frustrating that now that they finally have a... So here's the annoying part about Nintendo is that they offered individual sale of a lot of their older games with on the Wii Shop and like on the 3DS, on the Wii U. Like you could just buy N64 games and all of their older stuff. A lot of their older stuff, you can just buy it individually. And then now that they finally got to a point where they have like an account system where you actually can buy things that go to your account that are now transferring between systems, they finally got there. They finally caught up. And now they're like, now you can't buy those things individually and like own them in the quotation marks, which is kind of annoying. Like, kind of ridiculous. Even though it is a like good price and it's fair, it is really annoying and weird that you can't just buy the games that are on the service individually for like $5, $10. And they would make, I feel like they would make a lot of money that way too, also. If you could do it either way. But I don't know how many people that would like stop from paying for it on a yearly basis. So maybe they don't want to detract from those people. I don't really know. Eddie says, I'm fine with them. I'm not sub to any unless I forgot. Sometimes use Game Pass for a month at a time to play something. Reasonable, reasonable. And a one-liner from Jorzilla, game subscriptions degrades quality by guaranteeing revenue. As in, is that an implication that because they know they're guaranteed the revenue because people are already subscribed, they don't have to like strive to make the game as good as they can because they know that people are getting it anyways and they're not like having to put their money forward specifically for that game? Like, I guess that, I mean, if you say it like that, it kind of makes sense, but at the same time, because they're putting it out for sale also, and also putting it on platforms in which, for instance, PlayStation, where you do still have to buy the game up front and there is no Game Pass. Like, I feel like that makes that kind of fall apart because it's not exclusively made for Game Pass. If it was, then maybe there'd be something to say for that. But I kind of still don't think that that would be the case. This all depends on how much time they'll spend on it. Yeah, I mean, that's totally reasonable. That's your only subscription because you don't play other games. Uh-oh. I have alerts off. Is it this one?
Oh, you yet again. You're a persistent one, aren't you? You silly little
PK Kirby 876 with the 40-month resub. Oh, wahoo! Thanks. That's a lot of words. Something like that. Hello, PKK. It is a lot of words. You're right. You're right. You're boring. You're not boring. You're not boring. I apparently yell when you... No. I was trying to be... I just had to do the opposite because you told me I was wrong by doing it the other way. Tell me there's an in-between. How's it going, PKK? Thank you for the sub, good sir. Appreciate you coming in. I've gotten through 2 of the... Unless anyone has anything else to say about subscription services and pricing and stuff. If you do, make yourself heard. I enjoy dissing everyone. It's fun. The last thing I wanted to talk about, which is this video and the idea behind this video. I don't know exactly what gets said in this video because I have not watched it. I've just seen some discourse around it. And I feel like I probably have a lot to say about it, depending on what gets said here. So we shall check it out. There was a video posted by somebody that works at IGN. I believe it's, I mean, I'm assuming it's also an article they wrote. What's the name of the person? It's going to be important. It probably says it in the video. Anyways, the title of the video is, I'm getting bored of every PlayStation game telling the same story. It's a very inflammatory title, but, you know, you got to do it. You got to do it. Actually, speaking of, before I even start this, I uploaded that YouTube short for Jorzilla today, and the first 2 comments were positive. I was very surprised. Is there another one? Actually, there might be more than 2 comments that were positive. I'm getting bored of every PlayStation game telling the same story. What do they mean by this? Based on just the title, I partially agree and partially disagree. There's other things about this that I would like refer to as maybe more relevant in this conversation, but we'll see. I'm gonna pull this down like this. Put this down here. That's better, right? Something like that. Okay. I don't like the... OBS changed the way cropping works, and it's kind of annoying. it makes sense, but also I feel like it's harder to use in some ways. It's easier in some ways and harder in some ways. Weird. All right. Let's see what they have to say here. I'm going to keep pausing the video as I watch it. I have no idea how much I'm going to agree with this.
I'm a huge fan of PlayStation's first-party.
What is the volume like, by the way, versus me? Is that a good volume? Their name is Simon Cardy. Simon Cardy. Hopefully it's a good volume. I think it's similar to my volume.
Offerings. They've come to embody the sort of cinematic adventures I've always looked for when sitting down with a controller in my hand, feeling like genuine blockbuster events meant to be savoured. But where in the past this brand of glossy storytelling felt like new ground being trodden, I can't help but feel that recently it's become the well-worn road. It's not just that all of PlayStation's major releases adhere to the now trademarked third-person cinematic stylings. It's that the stable of developers has become seemingly obsessed with stories that explore the exact same themes, grief and revenge. And I'm starting to get a little tired of it. As a rule, these games are all impeccably well made, but I'm starting to miss that era when PlayStation's range felt wider and things were a little bit more fun.
I mean, yeah. I feel like that's been happening for like 10 years at this point, though, to some degree. Which has been like, really, it's very weird to even try to talk about, because it's like, it's basically trying to make sense of like the objective quality that you can see in something versus how much you're actually enjoying it. I found myself running into that issue when it comes to PlayStation games sometimes. I feel like the first time that I felt it, honestly, was a long time ago, which was Infamous Second Son. Because that was like kind of when I started, first of all, getting tired of open worlds. Which, again, that was 11 years ago. That was like March 2020 or March 2014, I believe. And I loved Infamous 1 and 2. And Infamous Second Son's good. And I actually like First Light better, but that's because they kind of scaled it down and it wasn't so... There's something about PlayStation first party and other games that kind of take a similar route where it's like you can objectively see the quality in a lot of it, but at the same time, there's like an underlying feeling of it not having like whimsy, I guess, or something, not feeling super gamey, which obviously they're not always intending to try to do, and not everything needs to be the same, but it's almost like in general, they've kind of went in a different direction, which I'm sure this video is going to be talking about. This seems to be focused on the story, but I don't think that the stories of these games are the only relevant part of this.
The realization that so many PlayStation games have explored the same grim story themes struck me when playing through Sucker Punch's new Ghost of Yotei. While I thoroughly enjoyed it and admire its consistently exciting approach to combat and genuine sense of discovery it creates for exploration, I couldn't help but feel I'd been told its story before. As Atsu, you're tasked with avenging the death of your parents on a blood-soaked journey across 17th century Japan, as you hunt down each of the Yotei Six. Not only is this tale unfortunately close to the plot of Assassin's Creed Shadows, which I also played to completion earlier this year, but it's the same combination of fiery revenge arc, crossed with meditations on what it is to grieve, that has become something of a hallmark for PlayStation Studios in recent years.
I'm sorry it came to this. Little wolf.
2019's The Last of Us Part 2 is an obvious trail.
Hold up. 2019's The Last of Us 2? That was 2020, brother. Nah. I can't watch this video.
Blazer, with Ellie's dark descent into a rage-filled embodiment of revenge coming as a result of the death of her father figure Joel. That, of course, was the sequel to the 2013 original that explored how Joel struggled to cope with the death of his own daughter. At the time, The Last of Us was seen as fueling a wave of sad dad games, including 2018's God of War. But in hindsight, these were just the building blocks for PlayStation's preoccupation with grief.
Find your way home. You are free.
2022's God of War Ragnarok is a story fueled by the loss of mothers and sons and the anger that comes with them. Insomniac's Spider-Man series follows both Peter Parker and Miles Morales as they attempt to overcome supervillain threats, as well as wrestle with their demons stemming from dead parental figures.
She never thought about herself.
It is kind of, when it is put in a video like this, it makes it more like, yeah. One sec. Damn, welcome. Imagine being so late for Ludo Lingo, you'll have to watch the VOD. Should I start it later? Is that what we're learning here? Maybe I should. Seems to be, it's not just you. It seems to generally be the case that I'm starting at not the best time for people. But thing about Yote is they do something about Japan and its history and people that no Japanese person would make a game about, and I love that about it. Like talking about the Ainu and all the, obviously most Western gamers don't care, but it was awesome to see, and I can see why that is a huge deal in Japan. Passion's there, I respect that. Sure. Sure. I mean, I can't really argue with that. I don't know anything about that topic. I don't think, like, this game, or this video so far, again, is just focusing on this whole, like, grief aspect and the story aspect, but I think there's a lot more to it than that make the games feel more similar than they should, especially for such a wide array of different first-party teams. Like, Astrobot should not feel as different as it does, I guess, is kind of how I would underline it. But I'm going to keep watching this.
Even when she was struggling to breathe.
2020's Returnal is a looping sci-fi nightmare born out of the protagonist Celine's familial grief-related trauma.
Yeah. So that's... Yeah. I feel like that's almost the biggest offender here, which is interesting because Returnal is probably my favorite game that's going to be mentioned here. Maybe. If not, like, very, very high on the list of these games. But, like, the story in that game, it's just like, I wish that it had, like, a fun story. Like, I feel like that would just fit it so much better. Not necessarily in exactly the way the game's made, but I feel like how they make games could benefit from being like a different type of game and not fitting in line with the rest of these first party games that are all like depressing. Like, you look at them and it's like, this one maybe could be not depressing, actually. That'd be cool. That would be cool. Maybe coming to grips with past trauma and loss is good storytelling. Sure, but like, why do we need good storytelling? Think about that. Where are the just fun, silly video games, though? I shouldn't have to go to Nintendo to get that. I shouldn't only be able to get that with Astrobot from them. Like it used to be. I mean, me too. I'm not saying stop making stories. I'm not saying all these games are ass. I like every single game that's been mentioned. Either a little bit or a lot. But I would like for there to be more variety, for sure, within Sony first party. Like, that'd be great. Because of the talent of these studios, it's just like, man, like I wish Naughty Dog, I love Naughty Dog, and I think their storytelling is incredible, but I would love to see them make a game that had a very bare bones story and like just have them focus all their attention on making it be fun. You don't have to stick to it, but just try one. Do one of those. Make a Mario game. not literally, but like, or Zelda, where it's like kind of in the background. You're not really paying attention to the story. It doesn't really matter. I don't know. We'll see with Intergalactic, because clearly they're taking inspiration from Software, so it might actually be more like that and not as much of a focus, which would be great. Even though I think it'll obviously be more of a focus than From does. Somewhere in between, though, could be cool. Anyways, technology allowed us to tell stories they couldn't have otherwise. Sure. I just wish we're all like in the same direction. Like there's so many things where like the world is ending or did end. Everyone's depressed and sad. Everyone had their family die. They're getting revenge or they're just sad about it. like it feels like PlayStation doesn't make video game characters anymore. They make like people into video games. They're just making people. They're just making, like, they're not trying to make mascots anymore. So that, I don't know, that something about that is just missing. It would be nice for it not just to be like, I feel like part of the problem here is that Media Molecule was so focused on dreams for so long that they just kind of like fell off the planet. And if they weren't doing that, if we still had like Sackboy or like some other new IP from them, because like Tearaway was awesome, Little Big Planet was awesome. It's like whatever their next thing would have been if they didn't get stuck doing dreams, could have been awesome. And then we'd have that and Astrobot. What more do I want? I want a couple more. What I want is every 18 months. I want within the span of every 2 years or so for there to be 2 or 3 PlayStation games of what we've come to know as traditional PlayStation games, with them being all serious and stuff. And then one game that's just like, woo, let's have fun. Which like Returnal kind of is, but then also for some reason it's also depressing. Although I straight up ignored pretty much everything that was going on in that game because I didn't care. But with all these other games I do, and I do like this stuff. It makes it sound hypocritical.
And then there's 2025's.
All right, hold on. Yeah, I'm gonna skip the Death Stranding 2 part just in case. It's a little new.
Sheet. Familial grief is at the centre of all of these stories, and while I certainly feel that mature themes have a place in games, it is all starting to feel like I'm getting hit around the head with the same ideas at this point. The cycle of violence is in very real danger of becoming a loop of diminishing returns.
You gutted my father.
He defied Lord Saito.
Then you tried to burn me alive.
Of course, it's true that not every PS5 game follows this pattern. Astrobot isn't an exploration of generational trauma in deep space, but you catch my drift. I think that's incidentally what I enjoyed so much about Team Asobi's Ode to PlayStation of old. With its joy and colour standing out from the otherwise morose crowd. It felt like a rarity, but it never used to be this way. The PS3 gave us Naughty Dog's Uncharted era, which, although it eventually ventured into more melancholic territory in A Thief's End, firmly planted its flag in themes of adventure with a tone ripped from the pages of Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, that kind of is true. Like, I feel like all of it started from Uncharted, kind of, well, and God of War, obviously, because that was like cinematic in its own way, although not as focused on the narrative necessarily. But it was much more uplifting. Not uplifting, but like, I don't know, it was less depressing. Even if it was very story focused. What if Astrobot's the one causing the trauma? Yeah, we need more pure joy, you're right.
I've always had a soft spot for Insomniac's Resistance and its World War II/sci-fi warfare mashup, as well as Little Big Planet, which, all the way at the other end of the tonal spectrum, celebrated creativity and community.
Welcome to Bunkum Chummy Chum Chum, where the sky is strewn with circling clouds of imagination.
Yes, these games all contained varying levels of character nuances, but were all fundamentally about different things. Treasure hunting, alien invasions, and personal expression. They weren't all trying to serve the same story, and I can't help but feel that if a new Jak and Daxter game were to come out today, it would be about an Otzel's thirst for revenge against the killers of his blonde-haired friend.
Hang on, Dax. It's gonna be close.
I hope that future PlayStation exclusives can look to this more varied, interesting past for inspiration, even when choosing to tackle more serious subject matters. Team Ico's PS2 classic Shadow of the Colossus took on a mournful tone, but found something truly unique and poignant within it, at a time when such ideas were far less common in games. It stands as a unique masterpiece to this day, telling its tale through vagaries and minimal cutscenes, a far cry from the trademark cinematic style we now expect of PlayStation games. What we didn't have back in the mid-2000s were 5 more PS2 releases that took its exact contemplations on love and loss and told the same story in a different wrapping. Every time you played something new from Sony Studios on the now 25-year-old console, it felt like a brand new experiment with a different story to tell, not just a variation on a theme. That brings me back to Ghost of Yotai, a game that is superior to its predecessor in almost every aspect, barring its central story.
My name is Atsu.
While I connect to Atsu more than I ever did Jin Sakai, she's a much warmer presence to spend a few dozen hours with. Ghost of Tsushima's narrative explores different, fresher ground. The story balances the personal struggles of Jin against the backdrop of an invasion of a nation, with themes of honor, betrayal, and belonging striking a chord and making it stand out when it arrived hot on the heels of The Last of Us Part 2 in 2020, before grief seemingly took hold of every Sony storyteller. Perhaps PlayStation's interest in grief is a reflection of the state of the world, though. When viewed through the lens of when PS5 exclusives like Ghost of Yotai and Death Stranding were being written, that melancholy is somewhat understandable. The COVID pandemic inarguably took hold of our planet in the years 2020 and 2021, and as such, themes surrounding unexpected loss and mass trauma would no doubt have been at the forefront of many minds. It will therefore be intriguing to see if this pattern will continue much further then, now that the world has somewhat settled back into what it looked like beforehand. Will the stories being told in projects that began production post-2022 mirror a different state of the planet, or continue to look inside ourselves at our darkest moments? These are, of course, all valid tales to tell, and I'm a huge proponent of art being reflections of those creating it, but I can't help but wish for a little more variety going forward.
I will find every last member.
A reason to be hopeful and skeptical, considering what Sony has coming up next. Insomniac's Wolverine looks to be delivering on all of the gore and decapitation you'd hope to see, but will that mature rating be reflected in its themes?
Death's always waiting.
Logan is certainly a character consumed by a lust for revenge. Will that see us taken down a familiar path of burying past demons through ultra-violence? Or will we get an altogether different story that taps into a different part of his psyche? James Mangold's Logan already told us a tale that would have slotted nicely into PlayStation's sad dad canon, as X-23 tapped into the softer side of his adamantium body. So I do hope we don't just get a rerun of that idea here. We also know that Saros is on the way from Housemarque in March, and it certainly looked impressive in the most recent State of Play stream. As for Naughty Dog, the ground zero of this long-running era of grief, we know that the studio will be taking on the sci-fi realm next with Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet. Its first trailer was promising, delivering a more fun-filled tone than we'd ever dream of seeing from The Last of Us. Of course, we've barely scratched the surface here, but it would be fantastic to see Naughty Dog rediscovering some of that Uncharted levity here.
Oh man, this game's gonna be nuts.
Both of these upcoming PS5 games, incidentally, are stories about people investigating lost off-world colonies. I hope for my sake that they find wildly different stories to tell on each of them, rather than discover reminders of the grief they've left behind.
But after every death, I always come back stronger.
For more on Ghost of Yotai, make sure to check out our review.
Good video. That's a good point. Yeah, well, yes. I was kind of surprised how focused on that point it was. I was expecting it to go kind of in other directions. I agree with what he was saying, but at the same time, I guess I would add a lot more to that, is the thing. You're hitting the road, Dan? All right, see ya. Have a good drive. I gotta switch back to this way. I would add more to it in that it's not just about the stories being similar. It's like I would include games like Ghost of Tsushima. Like, he was kind of exempting Ghost of Tsushima or Uncharted. Uncharted's definitely a little bit more different, at least outside of 4. But just being just generally having mature themes and focus on storytelling. I feel like you can broaden it even to that is like getting to be overdone to the point of disinterest to me in some ways. But yeah, it depends on what you're playing games for in the first place, of course. Everyone's wanting something different. The thing is that I like a variety of a bunch of these different things. And it just seems like PlayStation has fallen into a repetition of all of their studios, minus very few of them, have just kind of ended up focusing on like trying to be blockbuster stories. And it's a little weird because like that's not. I just wish they hadn't fully committed to that idea, I guess. And I feel like they're kind of pulling back from it a little bit, but I don't know how much, and I don't know like how much that's going to backfire. Obviously, Astrobot was a big success, but it's also like it's not like that's selling tens of millions of copies either. So it's not like, I don't know. They obviously have to chase things that they think are going to sell tens of millions of copies. They're not really in the business of trying to make like small wins. So hope more games like Astrobot come out. Yeah, me too. Is it weird though? Because Last of Us, Uncharted, Spider-Man, God of War are all either blockbusters or slated to be. That's the thing. Oh, yeah. About like cross-pollination with other media. Yeah. Well, yeah, but I mean, I would argue that doesn't have to happen. Like, that shouldn't be a requirement for a new IP to be born. Unfortunately, it feels like that's more and more becoming a thing because clearly they're weighing that ahead of time. What was it? Oh, what was it recently? Obviously they did that with Concord. They wanted it to be a cross-media thing before it even came out, which you kind of shouldn't do or try to plan for necessarily. But there's something else recently that isn't even out yet that they were talking about that. Now I forget what it was. Well, obviously Kojima with Fizzant, but like that's a little bit different because he's like, that is his thing. Like Kojima, I'm not even talking about a Kojima game because that's just what he does.